Hello, everyone. This is Ken Quigley from Keystroke. Let's get the meeting started. So the first thing that I want to ask, just remind everyone, there'll be, if you have any questions, please use the chat feature that you'll see at the bottom. And this event will be recorded. I just initiated that right now. So the agenda is fairly straightforward. It's going to be on email list verification, why it matters, common email list challenges, live demo inside of ActAdvantage, and then best practices and commercial details. Okay, so let's start off with why it's important. Well, according to most industry analysts, the average small business distribution list decays at a rate of 22 to 30% per year due to failing businesses, employee turnover, unsubscribes, spam reports, and domain changes. What this means is that a quarter of the emails sent to these lists will bounce, which will hurt a sender's reputation and cause more of their emails to be flagged as spam. As you might guess, the more spam and bounces an account gets, the more its overall deliverability rate plummets, leading to bad campaign results and possible blacklisting. If that weren't enough, email service providers like ACT take bounce rates very seriously. A sustained bounce rate of 5% or more could get your account suspended, with repeat offenders possibly facing account termination. Okay, so why does this happen? It's not due to the reasons that most people think. It's not due to laziness, and it's not um, due to people not caring. It's often due to a lack of technical skills and awareness. So let me kind of paint a picture. Um, Awareness, because most people believe big lists are better lists, and they don't. And when they don't analyze the results, they don't understand what's happening with their deliveries. So they're flying blind. They can have 5, 6, 10% bounce rate and wouldn't know. I'm not saying that's excusable, but it's hard to be motivated to correct a problem if you're not aware of it. Technical skills is a different issue because a lot of the services that are available out there, and I'm not suggesting that ActAdvantage has cornered the market on this. There's Net Zero, Bright Verify, all kinds of things where you go to them with an export of your database in a spreadsheet format, you upload it, okay, and then they scrub it, provide an extra column of values, and then you import that back in. That export and import process is pretty scary to most people, and rightly so, because that can really create a lot of mess in their database. Okay, so why is ActAdvantage integrated solution so much better? Well, it's simpler and it's inside the program and it tells you exactly what happens. So you basically select the contacts, start the scan, and view the results. And then you can use those results for, how you campaign to people. And we're going to get into a real life example of that. Okay, so let's get started. So before we begin though, I wanted to show you on our blog, I've got the top 5 reasons to give your email list a much needed bubble bath. So you can kind of go through all of this. I'm not going to read it. You guys can read it yourself, but just click on blog and look for this banner. Okay, so let's get into the demo itself. The first thing I want to do is I want to look up Chris Huffman. Okay. So this is what Chris Huffman's contact screen looks like. Now we have an email status field that I'll be covering later. I just want to show you currently that it is blank. Okay. Now, um, when you create, and I'll show you in a bit, when you create that field, you will have to add it to your layout. We've added it to the main tombstone here just for easy visibility. But as you will see, when you're managing the data, it really doesn't matter where it is. Okay, so let's get started. How do we access it? Well, first thing is we click on additional features. This was added to ActAdvantage, is not available in in regular Act Premium Cloud or obviously within the desktop. Okay. Um, Now you will see on the second row, if you are the primary account holder, you're going to see email list verification. If you are not, if you're a secondary user, you will not see it. Okay, and the reason is that this is a consumption feature. As you use it, you will consume your allotted budget of monthly scans. Okay, so they didn't want to kind of put that club in everyone's bag because one person can send out or not send out, but scan a bunch of their contacts thinking that they're exercising good hygiene and burn through their entire monthly budget, upsetting the plans of maybe the marketing team. So this is why it's only visible when you first get signed up. The primary user will have access to this and they can assign it to anyone else. Okay, so I'm going to go in here. Okay, now when you start off, you're going to be greeted with this dashboard. Here's all the scans that I've done in the past. Okay, I'm going to just drill into this one here. Okay, I've given it a name. I've got a BNI group. It's only got 39 people in it, but I can go here, select whatever group I want. This one's already been selected. Okay, now I've got scan mode. Okay, scan mode, I'm going to say process all contacts. There's only two options here: process all contacts or process contacts that have not already been verified. So what's the difference between the two? Well, if we know that you can scan a contact in January, and there's a 22 to 30% chance that that contact can have an invalid email by the time December rolls around, then you may want to schedule at least an annual scan of all contacts. But what you can do is, just as you're working through your list, scan only the contacts that you haven't already scanned. Because when you're trying to scan through your entire list at the beginning, you don't want to burn through your budget on ones you've already scanned, at least on the first pass. But annually, you should definitely budget to scan all those people again, because as I said, there's about a quarter, about 25% chance that they will be bad. So in this case, I'm going to say process all contacts. The next option is verify automatically. You do have the option to scan on a one-off basis, which will be what most people do, okay, daily, weekly, or monthly. We'll get into the use case for that a little bit later, okay? But now I'm going to just I can save, but I've already created this one, so I'm just going to click on run. Okay, so now it queues it up. It always gives you that, are you sure? Are you really, really sure? It says total items to be scanned is 39. It's giving me the name of the group, when when I last ran it. Okay, if this is a new group, obviously that value will be empty. Okay, and now I just click on start. I will have the option when I'm done to download a log, but it's going to look very similar to what you see on screen. You're going to see how fast it works. These scan at around 1 to 3 per second. So not only do you overcome that obstacle where even if people know that they have to scan their list and may not have the capacity to do it, it is so fast that this integrated scanning pretty much eliminates all excuses. Okay, so it says here, okay, verification process. Just click start to try and resume the process again. Okay, so it got the 39. Now, because, and I'll get into the nature of the scanning in a bit. Okay, so it looks like it's tripping up on the last one. Okay, so we're just going to continue on because it's 38 of 39 worked. Now I'm going to click on close. If I wanted to download the file, you're going to see it here. It's going to look exactly like what you see on screen. Okay, this is just for your own reference if you want to take it offline. Okay, so now that I've closed that, I have completed the scanning. Okay, now what does this whole process do? Okay, It's great, it's scanned, but like, what does it mean in practical terms? So let's go back to Chris Huffman, and now you can see that a value has been added here, okay? And the value indicates valid. So it's tested the email and determined it to be valid. Now, here's the 4 results. You can get valid, which meaning is obvious. You can get accept all, and I'll basically accept all. Imagine, um, anything at domain.com. So if I wanted to have keystroke.ca and let's say someone misspelled my name, but I still wanted to get those emails, by setting up my mail server as accept all, they can misspell my name, just get keystroke.ca right, and we will still get it. It'll end up in a general delivery mailbox. That's what accept all does. Error, I added that in. Invalid, okay, obviously invalid is a bad email address. Unknown means that just can't negotiate any kind of meaningful information from the mail server, and then valid. Okay, so those are the main. So the valid addresses obviously be confirmed, and then unknown. That more often than not, there is a an error in the process. Okay, so what does this actually mean in terms of how you're working with it? Well, when we first developed this feature, we developed it at Axe request to integrate it with brightverify.com to leverage their online database of valid emails. This seemed to be a far more efficient way because, one, it's right there. They sold API keys. They were set up to support this kind of integrated service. So we just said, we're going to leverage their online database. We're going to create an integration with them, and people can just go to Bright Verify and buy a key, and that will allow them to kind of scan whatever amount of contacts that they purchased. Um, this was great, but there was a couple of problems. One, and I'm going to lead with the least, people really did not like going to another party buying an API key. It just wasn't of appeal. Okay, it just seemed like an extra technical hurdle to surmount, so that they didn't do it. The biggest problem was that Bright Verify eventually canceled the service. They said that we don't want to deal with retail customers. We only want to deal um, with corporate customers. We're going to scrape all these accounts off our boots, and that was it. So we had to build something that is integrated. So we had to shift the model from working with an online database of good emails to actually pinging the mail servers live. Okay, so that scan that you just saw, that was going through and scanning each of the mail servers, um, and getting validity information live. Okay, now we had to develop this technology and then we sold it to Act. But here's the good news. Um, Even with Bright Verify's vast resources, um, and relatively high costs, we found a consistent variation of no more than 7%. Okay, so we tested the same lists over and over again, and we kept getting no more than a 7% variation in results. So we felt pretty good that we can, move forward this technology. And so let me just explain very briefly before we get into kind of a practical demo of how to use this. I'm sure there's a few geeky people in attendance. So I'm going to take 30 seconds of your time to explain how it works. So imagine, um, if like I make a connection, if I'm trying to verify Ken at keystroke.ca, the process will make a telnet connection to the mail server that basically says, hey, I'm sending email to ken at keystroke.ca. If the email exists, it returns a valid response, and then the connection gets closed and no email is sent. Okay. If the email doesn't exist, the email server should return an error, and again, that connection is closed. So no emails are ever sent. To accept all, what it does, it tries to a completely randomized email address on that domain in question. And if there's no error, then it's assumed to be an accept all. Okay. And then finally, if the server returns no useful information, and it will be flagged as unknown. Okay. So why are these updates useful for marketing? Okay. Well, AMA is based on groups. Everything that you email, the segmentation for which is otherwise known as your distribution list targets, is based on groups. Okay, so there's two ways that you can market. Now I'm going to just pull in here and go to marketing, and I'm going to go into this. So the two ways of approaching it is what I call the whitelist and the blacklist approach. Okay, so I'm going to go in here. Okay, and I can go here and I can say, let's click on the, oops, actually, I went into the template and I didn't mean to. I'm in email templates. I meant to be in email campaigns. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is if I go to the properties, the whitelist approach, see where it says keystroke users? That was just, we set this up as a demo yesterday. The whitelist approach would be to say, include people from a certain segment in your group and make sure that every person in that group has an email status that says valid. Okay, and you want to say equal to valid, because if you say contains valid, obviously it will include both valid and invalid. So you say equal to. So even if you have a segment of, say, all customers in a certain geographic area, by putting that extra dynamic condition, it's going to filter down that group even further. That's called the whitelist approach. Okay, the blacklist approach, I think, is far more effective. Okay, and I'm just going to go here and I'm going to go over to my group section. I got tons of groups, so this always takes a few seconds to load. Okay, but I have a group called blacklist, and that blacklist is comprised of people where it says unknown. Come on. And also, I have to say, my French sales rep is always giving me heck for adding in for emailing English campaigns to French people. So what I've done is I've added an extra condition, okay, where it says language, you know, does not contain French. Okay, so here is where my blacklist group says, if I click on here, email status contains invalid. Language contains French, and contact permission contains denied. That's something else in terms of our list scrubbing. So this is the blacklist. So this is going to capture everyone that has an invalid response, everyone that is French, and everyone that has literally opted out of our campaigns through other marketing means. Okay. So then what I do, since that's capturing all the bad addresses, I'm going to go into the same campaign and I'm going to say exclusions. Now think of your choice. If I type in blacklist here, I've got a choice in terms of managing my list. I can edit every single group that I market to, okay? And I can have cascading groups and campaigns. I can have campaigns that lead to the population of other groups. I would have to edit every single group that's involved in that campaign. Or I simply, on each campaign that I run, I add this blacklist group. So I'm a much, much bigger supporter of doing this. This way works for me anyway, rather than remembering to edit groups. I've tried both ways. This one is far more foolproof. I've added in removing the French content because I email primarily in English. So I'm not going to hit people with messaging they can't read. Okay, so let's take a look. That covers how we scan. It covers why we scan. It covers what it actually does by updating that email status field. And it covers how we use it in AMA. Okay, so those are the four main components here. But let's actually go back to the email list verification. And let's take a look at what we've got here. So these are the action buttons. Obviously, the play button means run, okay? The pencil button means edit. I can go in and edit. I've already done that. Here's the download log. And then under these ellipses, I'm not sure why we have an ellipsis for one option, but you can delete this list outright if it no longer serves a purpose to you. This is the name that we've given. Auto scan. So this, you can very quickly check to see what are the properties of all of your scan list. This has no auto scan component. Here is the last time it was run, which is obviously a few minutes ago. How many people were scanned, how many were valid, how many were accept all, and how many were skipped. Okay, so all of these things are pretty straightforward. Then we went in to cover the scanned options. Okay, we covered the scan regardless of if there's any results, and then skipping the ones that have already been scanned. Now, you may wonder why you would want to verify automatically, because there's going to be like, why would you want to scan the same list every week, every day, every month? Well, you can actually create a group relatively easily that says um, every contact that gets added to this database, put into this group. Okay, so it might be um, contact field um, create date equals within the last 30 days. Okay, so every contact that gets added to your database will be added into this group. Then what you can do is you can have a list here that scans that group every week, every month, so that you know that even if you import lists, even if some salespeople or others, or you get people with web forms um, that are being submitted through your website and added automatically to your database, all these people are being scanned. Okay, so that even if they sign up, my favorite example is to sign up the newsletters. Okay, you go to our website. Here you've got a little sign up thing here. Every person that signs up for that either gets added or updated to our database. I may want to have a protocol where every single month that group gets scrubbed, certainly ones that don't have an email status value. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's cancel here. Now, let's take a look. Obviously, when you get a ton of scan lists, it's useful to have a search field. You click on new, it pretty much looks at what I showed you before. You give it a name, you pick the group, and so on and so forth. But let's take a look here. This will show you your running monthly balance. This is, I've got the ultimate package, so I've got 5,000 that I get every month. So you might be wondering, well, what am I going to get? Well, the what you get is going to be based on what tier of ActAdvantage you've got. And it's very simple math. So ActAdvantage Standard includes 2,500 emails per month. So what you get is 10% of that. So you will get 250. If you are ActAdvantage Professional, you get 25,000 emails per month. So you get 10% of that, which is 2,500. And the tier that I'm at is I get Ultimate, which is 50,000 per month. So I get 5,000 scans per month. The thinking is that if you scan your main groups, okay, and you set up regular scanning, so let's say you've got one distribution list, and let's say that you've got the middle tier of professional, and you've got all your 25,000 contacts in there that you email, assuming that you're going to scan that many, then you can have this automatically scanning all the ones that don't have a value in the email status. And over the course of 10 months, it's going to cover your entire send budget. Okay, that's how it's kind of designed. So if you do it so it's rotating, it will pick up where it left off after every 30 days, and this will get reset on the first of every single month. It's not based on your renewal date; it's based on the rolling over, just like it is with AMA. So this gets reset at the beginning of every month, and then you can go through your entire list. By the time you hit 10 months, you've covered your entire budget. Okay, so couple of things. Best practices. I covered blacklist approach. Big fan of doing that. Talked about creating a recurring scan, okay, on new contacts or newsletter signups, okay. Can kind of cover both, that's fine. Creating a dynamic group that will deplete when the value in the email status field is populated. You can do that. It's not always required because you've got the option to scan only the unscanned contacts. And then the final best practice is to schedule a monthly scan of your entire marketing group, okay, and set it on only unverified contacts until it's done the entire list. And then annually scan it, like rotate it again so that it covers the entire list, okay? Because as I said, you're going to have 22 to 30% churn on an annual basis. Okay, so I've covered the commercial details, okay, that standard is getting 250 a month, professional is getting 2,500 a month, ultimate is getting 5,000. I've talked about how the math is, but let's talk about, you know, what happens if you sign up, you've got a big announcement and you don't want to wait 10 months, okay? I get it, okay? However, if you're a customer of ours, and everyone here is a customer of ours, you can just email us and we can send you a quote very quickly. Here's the good news. If you want to, let's say you want to scan those 25,000 people right off the hop, okay? What you can do is, let's say you're at the 5,000 and you want to scan 25,000. So you got to buy 20 extra blocks, okay? Normally you would go here and you would click on my account. And I'm showing you this so that you can understand what is available. Here is the update my plan. And here's where you can buy more users, buy more AMA blocks, buy more desktop syncs, buy more storage, but there's no more scans, okay? So if you email us how many you need, we can send you a quote. The reason I'm showing you this is twofold. One, this will be added, okay? I've already talked to ACT. They will be adding this. They're overhauling the whole myaccount.act.com back end, so you will be able to add it. Second of all, one of the reasons that you may want to go through us is that we know where the quantity discounts are. So if you, what we talked about 20, okay? So if you wanted to get 20 extra blocks, so blocks of 1,000, because you can only buy them in scans of 1,000. So you want to get 20 extra blocks, it would normally cost you $48 per block, okay? $4 a month. Now, three things to keep in mind. One, there are price breaks at 6 to 10, and there are price breaks at 11 plus. The price break when you go from 6 to 10 is 25%. Price breaks on 11 plus is 50%. So that's a huge savings when you're talking about coming from $48 to going to 24. Now, what the math means is that, let's say that you only need 5,000 on top of your 5,000. Well, it's actually cheaper to buy 6 instead of 5. So that's useful math to know. And then in fact, if you only need like 8 more blocks, okay, it's actually cheaper to buy 11, okay, because the discount is so cheap. So we can go through that math with you so you can see it, and that way we can actually get you more bang for your buck. Okay, there, as I said, there will come a time. The 2,500 email sends here has the same kind of 6 plus and 11 plus. So if you see here, it's calculating the math here, 311. Not sure how that math works. Okay, I really don't know what kind of math they're coming up with unless they're converting it, but yeah, that's really curious. Okay, so we'll get out of there. But that is how you can kind of ramp up. Now, I said there was three things. So you got the quantity discount to keep in mind. The final thing is that depending on where you are in your subscription cycle, if let's say that your renewal is in December and you want to do a big campaign scan in July or June, well, when you get this, and this is why it's important to do a quote with us, because you will only pay for the prorated amount. So what would, let's say you wanted to buy one block, that would cost $48 per block. But if you're in the middle of your term, you could end up paying 24. Okay, so it gets really useful if you talk to us, talk to our salespeople. We'll send you a quote and we'll tell you where the sweet spot is in terms of quantity and in terms of when to buy. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions here, so let me just pause. Okay. Okay, so I see one person's got audio issues. Sorry about that. Can I upload an Excel list of email addresses to scan before adding them to Act? Well, this is an integrated service, right? So you would have to import them into Act in order to scan them. Okay, so there isn't a kind of a purgatory that exists between the spreadsheet and Act. You would have to import it in. This is actually meant to bypass that step. Okay. I see a question here. I currently have Active Premium Cloud, 3 users with Desktop Sync, and I've used Link to List in the past to scrub our email list. It's better for me to upgrade to Act Advantage and resubscribe. It's interesting. Send me an email, Doi, after this, and I'll send you the math. It for people that are looking to have about 4,000 contacts, I think you're going to be much better inside of Act Advantage. Okay, and I can send you a quote on that. Because you only have 3 users, Act Advantage is crazy good value for small teams. I've actually written um, blogs on that, where if you're 1, 2, or 3 users, almost every single bit of math suggests you're better off, stepping up to professional rather than buying a la carte. Okay, like buying some of the Linktivity features a la carte. Okay. Brent says we don't see the additional features tab. What is required to get this access? Brent, you and I talked yesterday. We it was cheaper, as I said, because your number of users. This was the case I was just making. Because of the number of users, it was cheaper to add AMA Select as an a la carte add-on rather than adding professional upgrade to every one of your users. I'm always going to try to give you guys advice based on what I think is the best value. And in your case, because of the quantity of users, unlike the person before who only had 3 users, it makes much more sense to upgrade through Act Advantage. Okay. Is the email scan feature shown in the desktop? The scan field, the email status field that you create, and let me just go back to that so that you guys can see that. Okay, under the settings, okay, it still says built-in versus Bright Verify. I'm going to get that removed. Forget about Bright Verify. Shows me my balance. This is where I can click on here and I can click on plus and I can create the email status field and it will create the appropriate drop down. If for any reason, and obviously don't do this during production hours because you'll lock everyone out of the database, but if your database locks or unlocks unexpectedly, here's what the tool is, and then you can click on refresh if you've created a field and you can't see it, okay? So you can create that field, add it to your desktop layout, and you will see it. You will not see any of the scan features because this is a cloud integration, okay? Are the additional features functionality available now in Act? What is the cost of that? If you go here, just type in actadvantage.net. This will show you all that you need to know about ActAdvantage, okay? Including how to calculate it. So Brent and Doi, you guys were asking about, what makes more sense. You can go in here. We have built an online calculator. I wasn't thinking of showing this, but I think this is useful. So let's say Doi here, Doi has 3 users, okay? And she wants to get, let's say 25,000 cents, okay? And she's got marketing automation, okay? We'll just say just 25,000 cents. Okay, forget about all these other things. You can see that the sweet spot for her, okay, is to go with Act Professional here. But Brent, let's do the math for you. Okay, we're going to say 7. Okay, it's still showing that the middle tier is best for you. That might be an Orange Care discount thing. So you're kind of in the you're still in the sweet spot. Happy to talk to you about that afterwards, Brent. But this is, you can see you've got the 25,000. Let's go to advanced e-marketing. Yeah, you see that's where it will show you where your sweet spot is. 7 is kind of like the maximum that I would go to. And I think you might have more. Yeah, see I think you've got about 10, and you could see how this is showing that now it's cheaper to have Act Advantage Standard and then buy it a la carte. Okay, sorry, I don't want to get too distracted on this. This is just a tool that you can access within the actadvantage.net. But if you are curious about the math involved, you've got that here. Okay, so let me just see here. I have my own domain and hosted website. I check my own email using an email checker. It cannot confirm validity, which I assume means my email server does not reply to those checks. That's often the case. I don't want to give a blanket answer, okay? Because if you're using a third-party service like BrightVerify, they have their own email list, so maybe they've tried and they can't get it verified. But because ours is a live connection, that's typically, it will throw up a block, often out of security. Okay. The email is valid, but you have no way of knowing that. Not sure what that means, but I had someone ask me to explain earlier what accept all means. So accept all is either one of two things. It is where um, it's a wild card. So anything at domain.com, and that people will set up their email accounts or their domains to accept anything at their domain.com. Okay. And that's often so that they don't miss out on emails that are intended to go a particular recipient or a past recipient, and it will end up going to the general delivery mailbox. It's kind of like a safety net, and we use it. I like it. Sometimes you'll get that based on a security message from the mail server, but generally it's the wildcard issue. Valid and invalid are pretty consistent, okay? The only wildcard beyond that is the unknown, where you're just going to run into mail servers that have, certain certain security, or you have a lot of emails from one particular domain that you're scanning at once. And if a bunch of telnet connections are made from the same IP address to the same mail server, they may have a threshold that says, oh, hold on, I'm blocking you. We think this is some kind of DDoS attack or something else. And then it will just, that security will last about an hour. It likely won't happen again unless you run through the exact same, cluster of similar type emails, but that's typically how that will happen. Okay. Any other questions? So just to recap, okay, going back here, here is that we create a list, give it a name, target a group. It's beyond the scope. I really don't want to cover too much about how to create a group, but we did touch on that. Set the scan mode. either scan everything or scan just the unverified ones, set a schedule if you like. Most people won't, okay? And then just click on run, then you'll have the download. It works very fast as you guys saw, okay? And then here you can edit, run, download the logs, delete the list, start from again, and then you can see all the KPIs across each of these columns, okay? Any other questions? Okay, I hope this was useful because this is so easy now. You're not going out to a third-party site to grab API keys, buying separately. You're buying an amount that you can use every single month throughout the year. You just point and scan, and there's really eliminates all the excuses for not maintaining good list hygiene. So I hope this was useful. If any of you guys have any questions um, regarding this, please email me ken@kqc.ca or ken@keystroke.ca, and I'll answer any of your questions. And if you've got questions about your account status and what it would cost to migrate over to ActiveVantage, happy to help you out with that. Otherwise, I hope this was useful and you got something out of it. And I will distribute the recording either Monday or tomorrow or next week. Thanks all for your time.